In the heart of a small, dusty village named Udo, nestled between the jagged cliffs and the endless savanna, lived a girl named Amara. She was no ordinary girl, though she didn't know it yet. Amara was 15, with a spirit as bright as the sun but a life overshadowed by hardship. Her parents had passed when she was young, leaving her in the care of her distant aunt. Yet, something about her always seemed different. Her dreams were vivid, filled with whispers and shadows she couldn't understand. One fateful evening, as the village prepared for its annual moon festival, a stranger arrived. She was old, her face etched with time, and her voice carried a chilling calm. No one knew her name, only that she was a witch who lived deep in the forbidden forest. She approached Amara with a strange request: "Come with me for a year. Learn my ways, and you'll discover the truth about your destiny." The villagers gasped. Amara hesitated. But something about the old woman's gaze, something ancient and knowing, pulled her in. Little did Amara know, her life was about to change forever. Amara had always felt different. Her heart was heavy with the kind of yearning that couldn't be explained, like she was searching for something hidden just beyond her reach. But no one in her village could understand. In Udo, life was simple, predictable, and the world seemed safe, but Amara knew there was something more. The villagers didn't speak of the forest at night, the one that stretched endlessly towards the horizon, where the trees grew thicker and the air grew colder. It was said to be cursed, a place where the souls of the lost wandered, never to be found again. But that didn't stop Amara's restless mind from wondering. For years, she had heard whispers in the wind, felt strange sensations in the pit of her stomach whenever the full moon rose, and even dreamed of a face, a pale, gaunt woman with hollow eyes. Amara had never seen this woman in real life, but every time she closed her eyes, the woman seemed to call her name. One evening, under a sky brimming with stars, as the village prepared for its annual moon festival, everything changed. Amara was helping her aunt prepare the evening meal when an unnatural chill swept through the air. It wasn't the typical cool breeze of the evening. This one was sharp and biting, like it carried a warning. The children ran past her, laughing and playing, but Amara froze in place, her heart thudding in her chest. A shadow moved across the moon, darkening the night for a split second. It wasn't a cloud. It was something else. Something alive. The villagers paid no mind. It was just another superstition, they thought. But Amara knew better. Deep down, she felt the pull, the magnetic force of something she couldn't understand. A knock echoed through her aunt's door later that evening, pulling her from her thoughts. Her aunt opened it with a strained smile. Standing on the other side was a woman, tall, pale, and dressed in clothes that seemed to have been woven from the very darkness itself. Her eyes were black as the night sky, and when she spoke, it was like her voice slid inside Amara's bones. "I seek the one whose bloodline calls to the ancient powers," the woman said, her words sharp, like a blade cutting through the calm of the evening. Amara's aunt hesitated, glancing at her niece. Then, without a word, she stepped aside, allowing the stranger to enter. The air felt thick with tension. Amara could hear her own breath, shallow and quick, as the woman's gaze locked onto her. She stepped forward, and for the first time, Amara felt the weight of destiny pressing on her shoulders. "You will come with me," the woman declared, her voice almost a whisper now, a chilling sound that made the hairs on Amara's neck stand tall. "I need you." There was a silence that stretched for what seemed like an eternity. Amara's heart raced in her chest. Her aunt was silent, watching with eyes that held too many secrets. Amara wanted to ask, "Why me? What do you want with me?" But her lips wouldn't move. It was as if the very air had been stolen from her lungs. The woman smiled, as if she knew what Amara was thinking, and stepped closer. "The forest calls to you, child. It knows your name. You will come with me for 1 year, and in return, I will reveal the truth you have been seeking. But be warned, what you discover will change you forever." The words hung in the air like a curse. Amara's mind spun. A year? What truth? What could possibly be waiting for me in that cursed forest? But before she could answer, The woman's next words crushed her resistance. Refuse, and the price will be far worse. Amara's pulse quickened. The warning in the woman's voice was unmistakable. There was no room for doubt, no way to escape. Her feet felt like lead, but she found herself nodding, though the dread in her stomach twisted like 1,000 knots. Her world had already begun to unravel. As the woman turned, Amara followed her out of the house and into the night. The village was eerily quiet, as though it, too, knew that something dark had begun. The moon was high in the sky, casting long shadows over the land. Amara walked behind the woman, every step feeling like a step toward a place she had always feared. The forest loomed ahead, its trees towering like silent guardians, watching her every move. The closer they got, the more oppressive the air became. The silence was suffocating, and Amara could feel her own heartbeat pounding in her ears. Her eyes darted around, searching for some sign, some clue that this wasn't real. But the trees just stood there, unmoving. The shadows seemed to stretch and curl like fingers, reaching for her. When they entered the heart of the forest, the world seemed to change. The air grew colder, and the sounds of the night, once filled with the chirps of crickets and the rustling of leaves, died away. There was no sound, not a single breath of wind. It was as though time itself had stopped. The witch, if she was even a witch, stopped at the edge of a clearing, her back still turned. This is where you will stay. A year, and you will see things you could never imagine. Amara felt the weight of the witch's words pressing down on her chest. The clearing was dark, with only the faintest glow from the moon illuminating the ground beneath her feet. But that was enough. Just beyond the clearing, something glinted, a sharp, unnatural light. Something alive. The woman spoke again, her voice soft, almost coaxing. You are not afraid, are you? You should be. Amara's mouth went dry. Afraid? The words seemed too weak to capture the fear gnawing at her insides. Her legs trembled, but she knew one thing. She had no choice. She had crossed a line, and there was no turning back. As the witch turned to walk deeper into the forest, the moonlight flickered for a moment, then vanished entirely. The world plunged into darkness. Amara had never been one to shy away from the mysteries that lingered in her small village of Udo, though she often sensed an eerie pull in the depths of her soul. For years, her dreams had been troubled, dreams filled with ancient voices and shadows that whispered her name. Sometimes they spoke in riddles. Other times, they were simple and clear. The heart of the forest knows your fate. The villagers tried to reassure her. It's nothing, they'd say, brushing off her unease with laughter. But Amara knew better. Deep in her heart, she understood that something larger than fate itself was at work, and that something was about to knock on her door. One late afternoon, as dusk painted the sky with blood-red hues, an old woman entered the village. Her presence was like a shadow creeping across the land, quiet, yet undeniable. Her name was Neka, but she was known to the elders and the wise women of the village as Akwu, the witch of the East Forest. She was feared, whispered about in corners, and avoided by all, save for the desperate and the curious. Her skin was dark like the night, her eyes glimmered like the stars, and her voice? It could soothe a storm or summon one. The moment Neka stepped into the village square, the air seemed to thicken, like the earth itself was holding its breath. Villagers paused their chores, locking eyes with one another, but no one dared to approach her. All except Amara. Something pulled her toward the witch, a magnetic force she couldn't resist. She was drawn like a moth to the flame, as if Neka herself held the key to the mystery that had gnawed at Amara's soul for years. With hesitant steps, she moved toward the woman who was known to live alone, deep in the heart of the forbidden forest, surrounded by rumors of terrible magic. Child, Neka spoke softly, her voice like a breeze rustling through ancient trees. I've been waiting for you. Amara froze, her heart thumping in her chest. She hadn't spoken a word, hadn't even opened her mouth, yet this stranger, this witch, knew her name. Neka's smile was unsettling, as if she saw through Amara's very soul, as if she had known her all her life. "Do you fear me?" Nneka asked, her eyes twinkling with some unspoken truth. Amara's throat tightened. She did fear the witch, but more than that, she was curious. There was a hunger inside her, an insatiable desire to know what lay beyond the ordinary world she had known. And in that moment, she realized that if she was ever to understand the strange, mysterious pull she had felt all her life, this was the moment. This was the time to face whatever lay hidden in the shadows. "No," Amara finally whispered, her voice barely audible over the breeze. "I don't fear you." Nneka's smile deepened, but this time there was a trace of something else in her gaze. Approval? Perhaps. But there was a darkness in those eyes too, a glimmer of something Amara couldn't quite place. "I can offer you something few ever receive, child," Nneka continued, her voice weaving through Amara's mind like a spell. "A year in the forest. 1 year where you will learn what others dare not know, where you will discover the truths that remain hidden from the world. But in return, you must swear an oath." Amara's breath caught in her throat. A year in the forest? To learn the secrets of the world? How could she refuse? But the oath. The oath was the part that made her hesitate. "What do I have to swear?" she asked, voice trembling, though she didn't know why. She felt both terrified and exhilarated at once. Nneka's face darkened. "Swear that you will never reveal what you learn. Swear that you will never return to the village until you've uncovered the truth that binds your soul to the forest." The wind picked up suddenly, and the trees seemed to sway, as if listening, holding their breath in anticipation. A chill ran down Amara's spine, but she stood firm, knowing deep within her that this was no ordinary offer. Nneka's words carried a weight she could not ignore. With a mixture of dread and longing, Amara nodded. "I swear." The witch's eyes glittered as if she had just won some secret victory. "Good," Nneka said simply. "The forest awaits." As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the land, Amara felt herself being pulled away from the village. Her legs moved almost of their own accord, as if her body knew the path even before her mind did. Nneka led her toward the forest, where the trees seemed to shift and groan, and the very air felt charged with ancient energy. The moment Amara crossed the threshold into the forest, a strange sense of calm washed over her. It was as if the very earth had accepted her. But that calm was fleeting, quickly replaced by a gnawing sensation in her stomach, as though something was watching her from the darkness ahead. And there, in the depths of the forest, under the ghostly light of the moon, she would discover a truth that would change everything. But what Amara didn't know was that the path she had chosen would lead her to a place far darker than she ever imagined. The forest wasn't just filled with whispers. It had secrets, secrets that could unravel everything she believed about herself, her family, and the world she thought she knew. As she followed Nneka deeper into the forest, she could feel the air grow heavier. The shadows seemed to stretch longer, darker, as if the night itself was closing in. And though she had no idea what lay ahead, one thing was certain. Her life and her fate were now bound to the witch's ancient secrets. The forest had always been a place of mystery, its vastness shrouded in fear and superstition. But as Amara followed the old woman deeper into its heart, her fear was replaced by a strange sense of inevitability. Every step she took seemed to echo in the silence around them, like the earth itself was holding its breath. She had come this far, but a nagging feeling gnawed at her. The truth, whatever it was closer than ever. The trees, once welcoming, now closed in around them, their branches twisting like skeletal fingers. Amara's pulse quickened as the shadows seemed to shift with a life of their own. The path they were on grew darker, narrower, until it felt as though they were walking through a tunnel carved by something ancient, something far older than any living soul could comprehend. The old woman did not speak, but the weight of her presence seemed to fill the air, pressing in on Amara like a storm waiting to break. Every now and then, she would glance back at the girl, her eyes gleaming with an unsettling wisdom. Amara's heart raced as her mind spun with questions. What was she being led to? What was the price of the secret the witch held? Finally, after what seemed like hours, they reached a clearing. The ground here was damp, the air thick with the scent of moss and decay. At the center of the clearing stood an enormous stone altar, covered in strange markings, worn smooth by centuries of use. Amara's breath caught in her throat. She had heard tales of such altars, sacred sites where the earth's ancient powers could be summoned, where forbidden rituals were performed under the cover of night. This is where it begins. The old woman's voice finally broke the silence, low and cold as a tomb. The Heartstone is not a gift. It is a burden, a curse. Amara's knees nearly gave way as the weight of the words sank in. The Heartstone. She had heard of it in hushed whispers, a stone of unimaginable power that could control life and death. But it wasn't just a source of power, it was tied to something much darker. The old woman's hand lifted, and the earth trembled beneath them. Amara watched, stunned, as the ground around the altar began to split, revealing a hidden cavity deep within the earth. From it, a faint glow began to pulse, a sickly, greenish light that seemed to breathe like a living thing. Slowly, the witch reached into the opening, her fingers curling around something unseen. She pulled out a small, jagged stone that seemed to shimmer with a dark energy of its own. Amara's eyes widened as the stone gleamed in the witch's hand. This was the Heartstone. But there was something wrong about it, something unnatural. The very air seemed to thicken as the stone radiated a malevolent force, sending shivers down Amara's spine. The old woman's voice grew softer, more hypnotic. The Heartstone has a price. And you, Amara, have been chosen to pay it. Amara's mind raced, her body frozen in place. What do you mean? What is this price? Her voice trembled as the weight of the situation sank in. The witch's lips curled into a smile that sent chills down her spine. The Heartstone was never meant to be found. It was hidden away by those who knew its power, for it is the heart of the forest, its soul. To claim it is to claim its curse. Amara took a step back, her eyes searching the clearing for an escape. But there was none. The trees around them seemed to close in, their branches twisting and coiling like serpents. The wind howled, carrying with it the sound of distant screams, as if the forest itself were alive and watching. You are the one who will break the seal, the old woman continued, her voice low, almost a whisper. You are the one who will awaken the darkness. Amara's heart pounded in her chest. The weight of the words pressed down on her, suffocating her. She had always known there was something more to the world, something hidden in the shadows. But this was beyond anything she could have imagined. Suddenly, the witch's face grew more intense, her eyes glowing with a fire that could not be extinguished. The forest will take from you, Amara. It will take everything. And in return, you will be given a choice. A choice that will change everything. You can either return the Heartstone or what? Amara's voice cracked. Her mind was racing, and she could barely keep up with the torrent of thoughts swirling in her head. Or the darkness will consume you, body and soul. There is no escaping it now. You have already walked too far. The ground beneath her seemed to tremble once more, as though the earth itself was reaching for her. The stone in the witch's hand pulsed violently, casting strange, twisted shadows that danced across the clearing. Amara felt a coldness wash over her, an unnatural chill that seeped into her bones. You will become the Heartstone's new keeper, the witch whispered, as if speaking directly into her soul. You will wear its curse, and the forest will grow strong. For a long moment, there was silence, a stillness that seemed to stretch on forever. Amara stood frozen, her eyes locked on the glowing stone. Her chest rose and fell with each shallow breath. Her choice was clear. With trembling hands, she reached out. Amara's heart pounded in her chest as she stood before the old woman, whose face was now illuminated by a strange, ethereal glow. The air around them had thickened, and it felt as though time itself had paused, waiting for the moment of revelation. For a long while, the old woman did not speak. Instead, her eyes, which seemed to gleam with an unnatural knowing, remained fixed on Amara. You have done well to come this far, The woman's voice echoed, soft but heavy with something far more ancient than age. But there is a price to pay for the truth you seek. Everything has a cost. Amara didn't flinch. She had already come too far to turn back now, her curiosity and fear both burning like a wildfire within her. The weight of the unknown pressed against her chest, and yet she stood firm, waiting for the truth to come, whether it was beautiful or terrible. The woman stepped closer, her every movement deliberate, as if she had all the time in the world to reveal what had been hidden for so long. "You asked why you felt the pull of the forest," she continued, her voice now like the wind whispering through the trees. "And now you know the reason. It is because this forest has claimed you as its own. It has always known you. It has seen your soul, Amara." Amara's breath hitched. "What do you mean?" She couldn't believe what she was hearing. This forest, this dark, terrifying place, had it been watching her all along? Had it known her before she even set foot in it? The old woman's lips curved into a sad, knowing smile. The heart of the forest does not choose its protector by accident. It has been waiting for you. For many generations, the Heartstone has been guarded by those who carry its blood. You are the last of them. The power that runs through your veins has always been meant for this task. Amara's mind reeled. She could hardly breathe, the weight of the revelation crushing her chest. She was the protector? But of what? Of a dark power, an ancient force that had been sleeping for centuries? "You are chosen," the witch continued, "because you have the strength to bear its burden. Because, in you, there lies a secret that no one else can bear. The Heartstone has the power to both heal and destroy, to give life or to take it. It is a force that binds the very earth and sky. But there is one truth you must understand, Amara." The woman's eyes narrowed, her voice dropping to a low whisper. "The Heartstone is alive." Amara stumbled back, the shock of the words sinking in like a poison. Alive? The Heartstone had always been a legend, a mystical object of immense power, hidden somewhere in the darkest corner of the world. But alive? How could something so powerful, so dangerous, be alive? The witch reached into the folds of her tattered robe, and slowly, as though rehearsing the moment for centuries, she drew out a small, glowing object, a stone that pulsed with a soft, rhythmic glow, like the heartbeat of the earth itself. "This is the Heartstone," the witch said, "and it is bound to you, Amara. It will give you strength when you need it most, but it will also demand sacrifices. It cannot be controlled. It will test you, tempt you, and destroy those who are weak." Amara stared at the stone, feeling the pull of its energy deep inside her. She could sense the power radiating from it, could almost hear it calling to her in a way that made her feel both alive and terrified. "What must I do?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. The old woman's gaze softened. "The forest will never let you leave without first making a choice. You must decide whether to wield the power of the Heartstone and protect this world, or to destroy it all." The silence that followed was deafening. Amara's mind raced. To destroy it all? What kind of choice was that? How could she choose between saving the world and unleashing something so dangerous that it could destroy everything she loved? But deep down, she felt the stone's weight inside her. She knew that it was not just a choice, it was her destiny. "You were born with the Heartstone inside you, Amara," the witch continued, "but only you can decide its fate. The choice is yours. Choose wisely, for the heart of the forest beats with your heart. And if you fail, the darkness will claim you." Amara stood in the center of the clearing, the stone pulsing in her hands, as though it was alive. She closed her eyes, and for a brief moment, everything was quiet. The whispers in the wind, the calls of the creatures in the night, and even the thudding of her own heart seemed to fade away. In that stillness, she understood. She understood the power within her and the sacrifice it would require. She understood the cost of saving this world and the risk of losing everything. Opening her eyes, she made her choice. With trembling hands, she placed the Heartstone into the earth, where it began to glow even brighter, its light illuminating the dark forest around them. Slowly, the ground around her trembled, and the trees seemed to breathe, as though waking from a long slumber. The witch smiled faintly, her face softening. "You have chosen wisely," she murmured. And in that moment, Amara felt the weight of the world lift from her shoulders. The forest, the Heartstone, the darkness, it was all fading into the past. The world would be safe for now. But deep inside her, Amara knew one thing for certain. The journey wasn't over. The Heartstone had not been destroyed. It had only been reborn. And as long as she lived, it would always be a part of her. The question was no longer what she would do with it, but what it would do with her. The forest stood still as Amara faced the truth she had sought for so long. The Heartstone, the source of her mysterious visions and the very power that had drawn her to the witch, lay before her, pulsing with an eerie glow. But as she reached out to claim it, the ground beneath her feet trembled. The witch's laughter echoed through the trees, cold and merciless. "You think you've won?" The old woman's voice rang out, twisting with dark amusement. "The Heartstone is not a gift, child. It is a curse, and you are its final sacrifice." Amara froze, the weight of the words sinking in like a heavy stone. The Heartstone was never meant to be found, never meant to be claimed. It was the key to something far darker than she could have ever imagined. And as the air thickened with dark energy, she realized that the true test was not just about finding the Heartstone, it was about surviving the horrors it unleashed. With the witch's cackling fading into the shadows, Amara's last breath caught in her throat. The nightmare had only just begun.